in faithful manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to enforce the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests we are committed to our church. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages.
Honourable members, I have 2 messages. First message is on nominee for appointment as the Director of Public Prosecutions. Pursuant to the provision of Standing Order number 42, subsection 1, I wish to report to the House that I have received a message from His Excellency the President conveying its nomination of Mr. Nuruddin Mohammed Arji for appointment as the Director of Public Prosecutions. His Excellency the President, having exercised his powers under Article 157, Clause 2 of the Constitution, and Section 8, Subsection 5 of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions Act of 2013, now seeks the approval of the House. Honourable members, Section 8, Subsection 6 of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions Act 2013 provides that the National Assembly shall within 21 days vet and consider the nominee and may approve or reject the nominee. The Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011 requires the relevant committee of the House to consider the suitability or otherwise of such a nominee and table its report for consideration by the House. The Act further requires that the public be given 7 days notification to submit their views regarding the suitability or otherwise of the nominee proposed for appointment to an office requiring parliamentary approval. In this regard, and in accordance with the provisions of Article 259, Clause 5, Paragraph A of the Constitution, as read together with Section 5 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, the 7 days notification to the public shall start running on the day following the day when the notice is published in the dailies. Honourable members, this message, together with the calligram vitae of the nominee, therefore stands committed to the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs for consideration. Considering that the House is scheduled to proceed on short recess from 30th of March 2018, it is advisable that the committee expeditiously proceeds to notify the nominee and the public, commence the approval hearing after the 7-day notification period, and table a report on or before Wednesday, 28th of March 2018, to enable the House to consider the matter within the statutory timelines available. I thank you, honourable members. Honourable members, the second message from the President is on the nomination of principal secretaries and high commissioners and ambassadors. I wish to report to the House that I have received a message from His Excellency the President conferring his nominations of persons for appointment as principal secretaries and high commissioners and ambassadors. His Excellency the President, having exercised his powers under Article 132, Clause 2, Paragraph E, and 153, Clause 3, Paragraph B of the Constitution, is now seeking the National Assembly's approval of the following persons for appointment to the offices of principal secretaries and ambassadors / high commissioners. A, principal secretaries. 1, Mr. Harry K. Kimtai, State Department of Livestock. 2, Mr. Alfred Kipkoril Cheruiyot, State Department of Correctional Services. 3, Jerome Okoth Ochieng, State Department of Information, Communication, and Technology. 4, Ms. Susan Komen Koech, State Department of East African Community. And 5, Mr. John Morangi Omenge, State Department of Mining. B, ambassadors and high commissioners. 1, Ambassador Richard Titus Ekai. 2, Engineer John Okuna Ogango. 3, Honorable Wilfred Gisuka Machage. And 4, the Honorable Mohammed Mukhtar Shindie. Honorable members, in accordance with the provision of Standing Order number 45, subsection 1, which requires that upon receipt of notification of nomination for appointment, such nomination shall stand committed to the relevant departmental committee for consideration. The nominations for appointment to the positions of principal secretaries and ambassadors / high commissioners are hereby referred to the respective departmental committees as follows. Departmental Committee of Agriculture to consider nominee Mr. Harry K. Kimtai. 2, State Departmental Committee of Administration and National Security to consider nominee Mr. Alfred Kipkoril Cheruiyot. 3, Departmental Committee on Communication, Information, and Innovation to consider nominee Mr. Jerome Okoth Ochieng. 4, Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources to consider nominee Mr. John Morangi Omenge. Honorable members, Departmental Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations shall vet the nominees proposed for appointment as Principal Secretary for the State Department of East African Community, together with all nominees for appointment as High Commissioners and Ambassadors. Honorable members, Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, which requires that a committee shall consider a nomination and table its report for debate and decision of the House within 14 days from the date of notification. In this regard, and in accordance with the provisions of Article 259, Clause 5, Paragraph A of the Constitution, as read together with Section 5 of the same Act, the 7 days notification to the public shall start running on the day following the day when the notice is published in the dailies. Honorable members, it is advisable that the departmental committees expeditiously proceed to notify the respective nominees and the public, commence the approval hearings after the 7-day notification period, table their reports on or before Wednesday, 28th of March, 2018, to enable the House to consider the matters within the statutory timelines and before the short recess. This message, together with the curriculum vitae of the various nominees, therefore stand committed to the 5 departmental committees I have enumerated above for consideration. I thank you.
Order number 4, petitions.
Proceed.
Order number 5, papers.
Leader of Majority.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, March 15th, 2018. The first one is business transacted by the Fourth Assembly of the East Africa Legislative Assembly at its 22nd meeting of the first session of Parliament of Uganda as follows. A resolution of the Assembly to adopt and operationalize the administrative and financial autonomy granted to the East Africa Legislative Assembly. 2, resolution of the Assembly seeking special leave of the House to use records of the House for the court purposes to the East African Court of Justice, case reference number 2 of 2018. 3, the East African Community Statistics Bureau Bill 2017. 4, the East African Community Monetary Institute Bill of 2017. And 5, lastly, the East African Community Oath Bill 2017. 2, Mr. Speaker, I beg to table the performance audit report on the provisions of the financial and business support service to women by the Women Enterprise Fund, from the Office of the Auditor General for the period March 2018. 3, performance audit report on the implementation of the efficiency lightening project by the Kenya Power and Lighting Company from the Office of the Auditor General for the period March 2018. 4, the performance audit report on the operationalization of the constituency in industrial development centers by the Ministry of Industrialization and Enterprise Development from the Office of the Auditor General for the period March 2018. Number 5, Mr. Speaker, the annual report and financial statements of the Kenya Pipeline Company for the year that ended 30th June 2017. Number 6, the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the State Department for Special Programs in respect of the following programs for the year that ended 30th June 2017 and the certificate therein. And these are, the programs are 1, Relief and Rehabilitation Cash Transfer Fund, and 2, the Street Family Rehabilitation Trust Fund. Number 7, Mr. Speaker, the annual report and financial statements of the Kenya National Examination Council for the year that ended 30th June 2016. And finally, the last one is the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital for the year that ended 30th June 2016 and the certificate therein. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
None.
Order number 7, statements.
Leader majority.
Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44-2A, I rise to give the following statements on behalf of the House Business Committee chairs, with the bills before them, to fast-track their consideration and table their respective reports so as to guide the debate of the House during the second reading of those bills. Finally, Honorable Speaker, the House Business Committee will reconvene on Tuesday, March 20th at the rise of the House to consider business for the coming week. I now wish to lay this statement on the table of the House.
Very well. Honourable members, before we go to the next order, allow me to recognize the presence of students from the various institutions that I will name. Seated in the Speaker's Gallery, students from Kimgorom Girls High School from Mogotio constituency, Baringo County. Those from Nunkopir Girls High School, Kajiado East constituency, Kajiado County. And those from Mogotio Girls from Mogotio constituency, Baringo County, in the public gallery. Also in the public gallery, those from St. Paul, Karucho, Gichogo constituency, Kirinyaga County, and those from St. Jeremiah, Gitao High School, Naivasha constituency, Nakuru County. They are all welcome to observe the proceedings in the National Assembly this afternoon. Next order.
Order number 8, motion bipartisan resolve to support the initiative on building bridges to a new Kenya nation, anchor inclusivity and ensure cohesion in Kenya. Question to be put.
Honourable members, debate on this motion was concluded last evening. And what remains is for me to put the question, which I hereby do, that acknowledging that the meeting between His Excellency the President, the Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, and the distinguished leader of the NASA coalition, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, on Friday, March 9, 2018, putting aside political differences through building bridges, marked an important and historic moment for the country, aware that this extraordinary opportunity will enable Kenyans to face and address the challenges currently faced, and openly and honestly discuss successes and failures, and finally formulate and implement the necessary corrective measures for the country to move forward. Cognizant that ahead of and immediately after the 2017 general elections, Kenya witnessed a number of political upheavals, including but not limited to the demonstrations and hate speech which threatened to polarize the country along political and ethnic differences. Recognizing that the initiative by His Excellency the President and the leader of NASA coalition made on the 9th of March 2018 on building bridges to a new Kenyan nation and aimed at ensuring a more inclusive and cohesive nation will require facilitation and support from all arms of government and relevant institutions, committed to the determination of all Kenyans to live in peace as one indivisible sovereign nation. Further recognizing that there is need to roll out and implement programs on shared objectives in a bipartisan manner, as was agreed by the two distinguished leaders. Now, therefore, A, the thanks of this House be recorded in commending His Excellency the President, the Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga for providing leadership in the patriotic task of promoting unity, peace, and harmony in the country, and initiating the move towards building bridges to a new Kenyan nation. And B, this House commits itself to support and advance within its mandate the aims and objectives of the initiative of building bridges to a new Kenyan nation. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next.
Order number 9, the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 7 of 2018, second reading.
Honorable Ishongwa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Division of Revenue Bill 2018 was read for the first time in the National Assembly on Tuesday, 13 March 2018, and stood committed to the Select Committee on Budget and Appropriations Committee, pursuant to Standing Order 127-2 of the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, the Division of Revenue Bill 2018, therefore, provides, this bill, Mr. Speaker, provides for the equitable sharing of nationally raised revenue between the two levels of government, as well as additional resources to counties in form of conditional allocations in terms of grants and loans, and the equalization fund as provided for in our Constitution. To this end, Mr. Speaker, the enactment of the Division of Revenue Bill 2018 is critical in setting the stage for the preparation of the County Allocation of Revenue Bill for the financial year 2018-2019, which will inform the firming up and completion of the preparation of the annual budget estimates for the 47 county governments. Article 224 of the Constitution requires that county governments prepare and adopt their annual budgets and appropriations bills passed on the approved Division of Revenue Bill. To this end, the timely approval of the bill will go a long way in facilitating the county government's process in the budget-making process in a seamless manner. Mr. Speaker, is worth noting, and I must take this opportunity to thank the House Business Committee for having allocated us time for this bill to have both the second reading and the third reading this afternoon and be able to complete and relay the bill to the Senate. Mr. Speaker, the committee, that is the Budget and Appropriation Committee, wishes to thank your office, the Office of the Clerk of the National Assembly, and the Parliamentary Budget Office for the committed assistance received as it discharged its mandate during deliberations on this bill. On behalf of members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, most of who are in this chamber this afternoon, and as required under Article 204 and 221, subsection 5, subarticle 5 of the Constitution, as well as sections 18, subsection 4 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012. It is with great pleasure that I table this report for the House to note its contents and therefore debate the motion on the approval of the Division of Revenue Bill for the financial year 2018-2019. Mr. Speaker, on the shareable revenue, the Division of Revenue Bill 2018 provides that the projected total shareable revenue to be shared between the national government and the county governments for the next financial year 2018-2019 will be Kenya shillings 1.688492 trillion shillings, which comprises the national government share of 1.369792 million, that's 1.369 trillion shillings, further 4.7 billion shillings towards the equalization fund, and 314 billion shillings that will go to the equitable share of revenue to the county governments. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, the national government share of revenue for 2018 has provided for additional and conditional allocations to the counties, which amount to a total of about Kenya shilling 17,231 million, that's about 17.231 billion. These allocations have been earmarked for the following purposes. One is 9.4 billion shillings towards the leasing of medical equipment for the leased medical equipment program that has been going on. Two is compensation Arua, Tana River, and Tharaka Nithi. And Mr. Speaker, is worth noting that this allocation is part of a 3-year plan, which began in the financial year 2016-2017 to supplement the 5 counties to construct their county headquarters, and will be shared equally, with each getting an allocation of 121 million shillings for the financial year 2018-2019. This marks the second phase of the agreement, whereby the national government will contribute 70% of the budget, while county governments will contribute 30%. The national government's contribution will be spread over 3 financial years, and this now marks the second bit of that allocation. And I do hope, Mr. Speaker, that the county governments, even as they do their budgeting process, they will factor in the 30% in their budgets again over the 3-year period, so that when the national government finishes disbursement, they will be able also to have disbursed their 30% and complete this county headquarters. Since it's critical, these are some of the counties that ideally had no offices. I know a case like Nyandarua, they have been using rented offices. Same with the Tharaka Nithi, they haven't had offices. And I had the opportunity to visit the Tharaka Nithi, and I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that project is ongoing. Mr. Speaker, on the county government allocations, the Division of Revenue Bill 2018 proposes to allocate Kenya shillings 372,741 million to county governments as follows. The 314, which is the equitable share to county governments that I mentioned, 314 billion. An additional conditional allocations for the share of national revenue of Kenya shillings 17,231 million. Equalization fund, as mentioned earlier, 4,700 million, that's 4.7 billion Kenya shillings towards the equalization fund. For allocation from the fuel levy of 8.269 million, Kenya shillings 8,269 million, that's 8.269 billion shillings towards the allocation from fuel levy. And conditional allocations for loans and grants of Kenya shillings 33.2 billion. And Mr. Speaker, besides these 5 areas, there's a provision of 4,500 million, that's 4.5 billion from the national government share as a special grant to the National Hospital Insurance Fund, NHIF, to cater for the free maternal health care to be disbursed as reimbursements to the county governments. This will allow our mothers, expectant mothers, both for prenatal and postnatal care, to be able to access maternal health care free of charge in any county government or county government managed public hospital across the country. Previously, free maternal health care was reimbursed directly to the county governments, but there is a policy shift in administration of the free maternal health care, where the service shall be administered through the existing National Hospital Insurance Fund framework. Mr. Speaker, is worth noting because we had issues, and you remember in the 11th Parliament, we always had issues with disbursement of these funds to the county governments, complaining that there have been delays in the release of this money to the county governments. And therefore, a lot of expectant mothers were not able to access the free maternal health care on the argument that a number of public hospitals run by the county governments were not able to offer these services because they are not being reimbursed. We are now the government has now put it in a more efficient manner through the NHIF, and all an expectant mother will need to do is to walk into a hospital, and NHIF will cater for that cost, and on reimbursement basis, reimburse the particular county governments, just like every other insurance policy works in this country. Mr. Speaker, this departure in policy will help not just the county governments in terms of being able to get timely reimbursements, but also help our expectant mothers. And it is in line with the promises made by His Excellency the President during the campaigns that not only will be expectant mothers be able to be catered for pre-delivery, even a year after delivery, both the mother and the child that the mother will have delivered will be under this care through NHIF in pursuant to that promise, which was in the Jubilee Manifesto, to offer maternal health care both for the mother and have the child also covered for the first 1 year of their lives. And this will encourage mothers to continue to enlist these children and even their own families to NHIF. Mr. Speaker, the committee noted that the most recent audited accounts that is the basis of revenue sharing in accordance with Article 203, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution, relates to the financial year 2013-2014. And this is on account that the National Assembly is yet to approve audited accounts of revenues for financial years 2014-2015 and 2015-2016. And I'm sure the Auditor General is now working on towards 2016-2017. We therefore implore the relevant committee and the House to fast track on the approval of these accounts so that this division of revenue bill is based on the most recent audited accounts of government. As you can see, we are 3 or 4 years behind in terms of the allocated, approved financial accounts. Mr. Speaker, the committee observed that despite the allocation of leasing medical equipment, having increased to its current allocation of 9.4 billion shillings, there was need to audit the beneficiaries of this equipment as well as the details of the contracts. The committee observed that some of the 94 hospitals in respective counties that were expected to receive this specialized equipment are yet to receive this equipment, and some lack the relevant skills and reagents to operate them. Therefore, there are many hospitals where machines are there, but simple things like reagents, skills to use these machines are not there, and therefore they remain unutilized. To this end, Mr. Speaker, the committee has observed that it shall engage with the chairperson of the Health Committee from the Council of Governors and the National Assembly Committee on Health to discuss the matter before making its recommendations on the 2018-2019 budget estimates. In addition, Mr. Speaker, where the committee will be, we will be conducting our public hearings in the month of May this year for the 2018-2019 estimates. We, as a committee, will undertake visits in some selected counties to specifically have an understanding of the leasing of medical equipment program and be able to see, including Garissa, of course, because I do hear the leader of majority, begging that we do visit Garissa. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the committee observed that the county governments continue to receive allocation of the fuel levy fund despite having no clear framework in place to support these allocations. It was noted that with concern that the Kenya Roads Bill 2017, by the time we were doing this, had not been approved by the House, but I think we are now past that. And I must take this opportunity to commend the Chair, the Honorable Kosing, Chair for Roads and Infrastructure, for fast-tracking this bill, because it creates the legal framework now to be able to share this, against which these 8.2 billion shillings from the fuel levy will be disbursed. Mr. Speaker, the committee requests the House, therefore, to approve the Division of Revenue Bill 2018 as read today for the second time. Mr. Speaker, further to that, over the last few years, Mr. Speaker, it has been custom or tradition that every time we pass this bill in this House and we pass it on to the other House in the Senate, there are reports that the Commission of Revenue Allocation has gone to the Senate with different figures far from what has been agreed. And I want to take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to ask our friends in the Senate to please adhere to the agreed figures, because these figures have an implication even on the fiscal deficit that we were talking about during the budget policy statement debate. And you can remember, Mr. Speaker, how heated the debate was in terms of our national debt. And if you are to allocate any extra coin other than what has been agreed on, it would have a negative impact on our national fiscal deficit, and therefore affect also our borrowing as a nation, our national debt. Therefore, I want to ask the National Senate, hoping, of course, Mr. Speaker, that members in this House will support this bill, even as we go to the third reading this afternoon and pass it on to the Senate, that they will stick to the figures as agreed. And in the spirit, the new spirit of building bridges, we would also want to take this opportunity to shake hands with our colleagues in the National Senate and shake hands for the first time in the last 5 years and be able to pass this Division of Revenue Bill without having to waste a lot of time going into mediation. And therefore, I do want to speak to the other House, Mr. Speaker, and ask even those of us who have opportunity to speak to our senators, to speak to them to be able to pass this Division of Revenue Bill as it is, so that they're able to also fast-track the county allocation bill and be able to move forward towards estimates later this year. With those many of your remarks, Mr. Speaker, I want to invite the Honorable Moses Lessonet. I do not see him, and he was to second. Let me invite the Honorable Makali Mulu to second on behalf of the Vice Chair. Thank you.
Honorable Makali Mulu.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this chance to second this important bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Division of Revenue Bill is an important bill, and it's actually a follow-up to our approval of the budget policy statement, Mr. Speaker. So most of the figures which you find in this bill are actually the same figures which this House approved when you approved the budget policy statement, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill, what it does, it helps this House approve what we call the vertical division of our budget. That is sharing the budget between the national government and the county governments, Mr. Speaker. So it's a very straightforward bill, Mr. Speaker. And actually, if honorable members want to appreciate this bill, the best thing is to look at what they are calling the explanatory notes. That's why you capture most of the details. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to say just a few things, make a few observations, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you look at Clause 5 of this bill, it talks about a situation where we have a shortfall in terms of revenue generation or revenue collection, Mr. Speaker. And it says in a situation where the revenue generated in this country falls short of expectations, then, Mr. Speaker, the only money you can reduce or the only money you can change is the figure for the national government. That means the figure for the county governments, Mr. Speaker, is fixed. And that, Mr. Speaker, is important because it ensures that the programs and projects for the county government are fully funded in terms of what is in this bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the other important bit, which I just want to possibly put more emphasis on, is what my friend and chair, Honorable Ichung'wah, said. The issue of this House, Mr. Speaker, being up to speed in terms of approving our reports, the public accounts reports, Mr. Speaker. We are already about 3 years behind schedule, Mr. Speaker. And it is important as a House, Mr. Speaker, we fast track this important national exercise so that the figures we use in these bills, Mr. Speaker, are up to date. I don't want, Mr. Speaker, to say much about the listing of medical equipment, Mr. Speaker. I think it has been captured very well. And what we are saying, Mr. Speaker, is now we are in the 5th year of this program of listing equipment, Mr. Speaker. And the honorable members, because we represent people in our constituencies, I don't know how many of us would stand in this House and say the level of medical services in their constituencies would give an indication of use of this resource which we are allocating every year, Mr. Speaker. To make things worse, Mr. Speaker, we are actually increasing this figure from about 4.5 billion to 9.3 billion. And I agree with my chairman, Mr. Speaker, that I think it's important we do an audit of how this important program is being implemented. Mr. Speaker, it doesn't make sense to allocate resources and where the actual implementation doesn't take place. If you go to most of our level 4 hospitals, Mr. Speaker, you hardly see signs of really this money. Some have equipment which are in stores. They can't use them because they don't have the capacity. They require skills to use the equipment. Others have not even gotten the equipment. And Mr. Speaker, I think medical health care in this country is below expectation. And I think as a House, it's our work, because we oversight this ministry to make sure that this important equipment, Mr. Speaker, benefit Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, we look through the what I call conditional grants, which have been given to the county government, Mr. Speaker. I think generally, Mr. Speaker, we need just to agree that it is important we have a follow-up and make sure that this money is reaching the people. For example, Mr. Speaker, there is some allocation here to support what they are calling National Agriculture and Rural Inclusive Growth Project. This program, Mr. Speaker, is very important for food security in this country. And if it is implemented, Mr. Speaker, you realize that it would then go a long way in trying to achieve this one of the 4 agenda items, what we are calling the Big 4, the agenda on food security, Mr. Speaker. So it's a matter of ensuring that we monitor implementation. The other good thing, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of we have some resources here which have been provided under the Kenya Devolution Support Program to build capacities of the county government, Mr. Speaker. Capacity in terms of financial management, public financial management, capacity to do with human resource management, and most importantly, Mr. Speaker, capacity to do with planning and monitoring and evaluation. So, Mr. Speaker, if this money is utilized well, it can go a long way in supporting these county governments to make sure that the resources are allocated actually end up being used for the right purposes and intended purposes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Clause 16 of this bill talks about public debt. And those who will take time to look at it, it actually indicates that we are increasing, this is going to increase from about 450 billion to 687 billion. Mr. Speaker, if you tie Clause 11 with the note 11, with the note 19, Mr. Speaker, you see the impact, Mr. Speaker. 19 does say that because of all these requirements to pay, because some of these are first charged to the consolidated fund, Mr. Speaker, the only amount the government is left with to plan for our roads, to plan for our defense, to plan for our energy, is only 143 billion, Mr. Speaker, out of a total collection of 1.8 trillion. So, Mr. Speaker, you can see the impact of some of these things we keep on talking about in this House. That it makes the budget so inflexible that even in terms of planning for this other important national project, Mr. Speaker, our hands are tied even as a budget committee, and even Treasury is tied, because they have only 140 billion, which they can allocate now freely. The rest of the money is tied. It's a matter of saying this must go here, this must go here, this must go here. So it means, Mr. Speaker, we need to help this country as we move forward that Now we start releasing more resources into this account of free resources which can be allocated for purposes of our roads, purposes of our defense, and purposes of energy and other important national programs, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the issue of the cancer, the issue of Treasury explaining why they have not met some of the requirements of the CRA, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the issue of the cancer regional centers. There was a recommendation last budget, we do 2 cancer regional centers, Mr. Speaker. And this House approved, I think 4.0 billion for that purpose. Now this year, CRA, Mr. Speaker, is proposing that we provide additional 5 billion for the same purpose. But what Treasury is saying is, they cannot approve this because the policy on that matter has not been finalized. And Mr. Speaker, I ask myself, how come that we were able to allocate resources last year, and this year we are being told that policy needs to be discussed in the sectoral meetings? Mr. Speaker, to me this is a contradiction. And it shows, to some extent, it shows poor planning. That some of the projects we are allocating resources in this House, Mr. Speaker, might not have done in terms of project appraisal. Maybe have not done up to the level expected. And I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, the technical people in the ministries to make sure that before they allocate resources for any of these programs, thorough appraisal is done to make
and gives the criteria that will be used in making a determination in as far as how these equitable resources will be shared. So these are all anchored in the Constitution. And Mr. Speaker, the criteria are very once provided in Article 202, subsection 1 of the Constitution, that the national interest of the country must be taken into, the public debt provisions must be provided, the needs of the national government, the need to ensure county governments are able to perform in as far as performing their assigned functions, provide development vote for the county governments, and as well as to ensure a stable and a predictable. See the great lady who is the vice chair, Honorable Jessica. I am sure we can burn the midnight oil and provide the most recent audited resources and approved by this House. So, Mr. Speaker, but if you look at what has been allocated, this bill allocates the county government, Mr. Speaker, an equitable share of 314 billion for the financial year 2018-2019, compared to 2017-2018, and reflects an increase of 4%. So every year, the amount of money given to county government increases. From last year, it has now increased by 4%, which means the allocation is twice what the Constitution anticipates. But what are we using? We are using audited revenue of 935 billion for the financial year 2013-2014. Maybe if we had 17-18, we could be talking of 1.2 trillion, which will give more to the county government. Mr. Speaker, there is an institution called IBEC, the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, chaired by the Deputy President. In our opinion, they sit with the Commission for Revenue Allocation, with the Senate, with the Treasury, with all stakeholders. And this time, the Council of Governors, they have agreed. But this Commission on Revenue Allocation, and we are putting them on notice, because they were passed by this House. They were vetted, and they were passed by this House. Once they leave IBEC, they go and give the Senate Finance Committee different figures. Mr. Speaker, I hope the chair of CRA is watching, and the commissioners. You can't play games. If you agree at IBEC, where the Council of Governors are represented, where the Budget and Appropriation Committee of the National Assembly is there, where the Finance Committee of the Senate is there, and let me go and see the true president. And he saw and he shook hands and he said, I am the true leader of the opposition. Let us empower the senators. Let us give them resources. Let them leave Nairobi. They go to our counties and they follow each and every penny. So when that allocation comes to the House, I really want to ask colleagues, this time round, let us support our colleagues on the other side. Mr. Speaker, there is 605 million which has been given to 5 counties to build headquarters. We want to see a headquarters in Isiolo, in Lamu, in Nyandarua, in Tana River, and Tharaka Nithi, once this money is released. And the member, the chair himself has gone to that area. So, Mr. Speaker, if you look at Article 218, subsection 1A of the Constitution, it says, at least 2 months before the end of each financial year, there shall be introduced in Parliament a division of revenue bill which shall divide the revenue raised nationally among the national government and the county government. Mr. Speaker, this House has, however, realized that in order to facilitate the planning, the budgeting at the national and the county level of government, it was necessary to make a determination on the division of revenue bill early in the year. And thus, this House enacted the Public Finance Management Act 2012 that the division of revenue bill will be submitted to Parliament by 15th of February of each financial year. So, Mr. Speaker, I am sure this time, at the IBEC level, everybody has agreed, the Council of Governors, the National Assembly, the Senate, CRA. And CRA, we don't like, and we will not entertain the shenanigans. The chair must listen to me. The budget chair, you must call CRA and ask them why they're playing games with a very important bill, which is the division of revenue bill. So, Speaker, with those many remarks, I beg to support.
Very well. I think earlier on, I told you that my screen is not working, and therefore I can use the smiles. So, and see the member for Suna East. The member for Suna East was smiling very broadly. Maybe you can take to the mic.
Oh, thank you. Chair, I had already spoken to the minority leader to give me a chance. I want to attend to some other business outside. So he had agreed, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed.
Yes, not a Rambe House. Mr. Speaker, I stand to support the bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a very important bill for this country, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, I don't know that this bill, before it is enacted, an agreement should be made between the two houses before it comes here, so that the Senate can agree early enough that this is the right thing, and then we agree, and then we pass it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, last Parliament, I was here when the now minority leader spoke very well about this issue of the division of revenue bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, taxation measures are done in this House. This is where budgets and the whole estimate is done, Mr. Speaker. The finance bill is passed here, Mr. Speaker. But in the end, the Senate comes and tells you that you must give the county government this much, when they don't know how much money is it's available, is in the past, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, in spite of an opinion from the Supreme Court being in place, but I think we must come up with other mechanisms to agree, because this is the House that knows exactly how much money is available, how much money that can be shared, and I think those ones are supposed to mainly concentrate on sharing of revenue between counties, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, counties have been given a lot of money. From the year